Good morning.
Good morning. Where to, please?
Actually, I need to go to Riverdale on Saturday, but I wanted to ask you about the new rail pass.
Oh, yes, the weekly, monthly, or annual pass.
Could you just remind me of the prices, please?
The weekly is $19.80. Monthly is $74.90. And just a second. The annual pass is $680 exactly.
I think the monthly would be best for me. Yeah.
Okay, so would you like to go ahead with that?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, if I can just take your name then.
Yes, of course. That's Tony Birtwistle.
I'm sorry, is that with an H or without?
Without. Birtwistle.
Birtwistle? Okay, thanks. And your address, please?
106 Sumner Drive.
Sumner Drive?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, I just need a telephone number for you.
Okay, 076 3457 6493.
076 3457 6493.
That's right.
Okay, then. That will be $74.90 plus tax, of course. So $81.30 total.
Okay, credit card, okay?
Yes. So you need to get to Riverdale on Saturday?
That's right. With as few changes as possible. If there's a direct train.
You can't go direct from here, I'm afraid, but there are basically three routes you can take. You can go via Botton. That takes 3 hours and 10 minutes, but you have to change at Ferden. And you'd have to wait there about 25 minutes for your connection, and you'd have a 15-minute wait in Botton. The service runs every hour.
Every hour, I see. And the other two routes, are they any quicker?
Well, there's an early train which also goes to Botton, but you don't have to change in Ferden. You only have to wait about 12 minutes at Botton for the connection.
I see. But you say that's an early train. So what time does it leave?
Well, that could be a problem. 6:15 a.m.
Oh, really? I see. And there's just one train a day?
That's right. But it takes under 2 hours. About 1 hour and 45 in total.
And the third option?
Yes, the third option is to go via Brentbrook. There's an express train which only takes about 50 minutes. You'd have to wait for about 6 minutes in Brentbrook. There's no need to change platforms usually, by the way. And then you catch the second express train to Riverdale, and that takes another 1 hour and 20 minutes.
Is that an early train too?
No, actually that service runs every 2 hours. Well, except for on Sunday. Will you be coming back on Sunday?
No, actually. No, I won't be.
Okay, so those are your only two options, really.
Right. Well, the express service sounds like the best.
Yes, it probably is. I should tell you, though, that there is a supplement charge for that. So you'd have to pay slightly more. The price is not covered completely by your rail pass.
Oh, really? I see. So, how much extra?
On that journey, it would be, just a second, $3, $3.80.
I see. $3.80.
That's single. Return would be $6.90.
Okay, still not too bad. Okay, well, I'll go for the express service.
So, as you're all new to the city, I'll run through the metro system and how it works. Now, as you've probably already noticed, entrances to the metro stations are marked by tall brown columns with a large M on each side. As you would expect, all metro lines are colour-coded: blue, green, orange, red and yellow. Not only does the tall brown column identify the station by name, but the colour stripes at the top of the column show which metro lines serve that station. So you know before you go into the metro whether the station has the connections you need. When you get down into the metro, of course, there are maps in the station and inside the trains, which also help you find your way. Now, in order to travel, you need to purchase a ticket, of course. The metro system uses something we call a fare pass, which is basically a magnetically encoded card. Each passenger must have one. Now, you can buy them for single journeys or multiple journeys. The cheapest single journey at the moment is $1.10, but you could pay as much as $49 and use that fare pass for multiple rides. I'm sure you'll also be interested to know that you get a 10% bonus if you purchase a fare pass for $20 or more. So, for example, if you pay $20, your fare pass would actually be worth $22. So this works like a credit system on the card. You insert your card as you go into the metro gate and then again when you exit. The fee is automatically deducted from the card. The fare depends on when and how far you travel. Peak fares are charged weekdays between 5:30 to 9:30 a.m. and 3 to 8 p.m. Off-peak fares are charged at all other times. If you want to check your credit at any time, the ticket machines in any station will tell you. Simply insert your card and tap Credit Check on the screen. A couple of other points I'd like to make. First of all, we are very proud of our metro system. It has an excellent record of timekeeping, cleanliness and safety. So we do ask people adhere to what we call metro manners. There's nothing very surprising here, but just so you're fully aware, there are in fact quite heavy fines which can be imposed if the rules are not adhered to. Number 1 is no food, drinks or smoking on the platforms or the trains, in fact anywhere on the metro system. Also, please do not drop any litter. All these are in fact illegal and are punishable by fine or even a jail sentence in extreme cases. Second, be considerate when listening to music or radio. You need to use headsets and your device needs to be set at a volume which doesn't disturb other passengers. There's little point wearing a headset if those around you can still hear what you're playing. The third point is to do unto others as you would done by. Please let all passengers off before you try to get on. Rushing to get to a seat really doesn't help anyone apart from yourself. It causes delays in people getting off, which slows the system down, and it also leads to stress and frustration. And that is not the kind of atmosphere we want on the metro. So, please always be polite. Finally, a similar point, there are special seats allocated for senior citizens, passengers with disabilities, and people travelling with babies. So, it should go without saying, really, but please do give up a special seat if you're using one when anyone in this category gets on. You may also like to give up your standard seat for these people anyway. Again, that would help the general atmosphere on the metro and set a good example for others. Okay, so any questions?
Thanks to everyone for coming. Today we're going to look at some of the recent developments in inner city transport. Specifically, we're going to look at biking and how, in a relatively short time, it can affect the flow of traffic across an entire city.
Sounds impressive.
Yes, in some cities the effects have been dramatic, and I'd like to look at why that has been the case. The success of the shared biking schemes, as they are known, in European cities comes down to several factors. But first of all, just let me be clear about the schemes themselves. So, we are talking about bicycles owned by the local government, which are made available in the city streets to the general public. People can borrow a bike from any parking area and drop the bike off at a parking area of their choosing.
Sorry, so how do they make sure the bicycles are not stolen?
Well, thank you for the question, because it's a very good one, and in fact, the answer explains how the system has managed to become so successful. They actually use a sophisticated tagging system, not unlike the ones used to tag people with criminal records, so they can trace the bicycles very easily anywhere in the city.
I see.
The other reasons why the scheme has been so successful in some cities is due to the features of the cities themselves. Cities which have temperate climate, of course, and cities that have extensive flat areas, particularly in the centers, are of course more likely to do well.
So is it expensive to rent these bicycles?
Again, a good question. There are different schemes out there. People can pay per hour, per day, per month even. But again, coming back to the most successful of schemes, these seem to operate an annual payment system. You're given a swipe card, which is valid for an entire year. This, of course, means that the local government gets the money in earlier, and they can use the cash to invest and develop the scheme further.
Don't the bikes get in a bit of a mess after a while?
Well, yes, they do. You're quite right. A lot of people using the same bicycles every day, and bicycles, which of course are not their own, means that perhaps some people don't take as much care of them as city authorities would like them to. But to deal with this problem, the successful cities have brought more bicycles, and they simply swap them over on regular intervals so that the bikes can be serviced.
So, how much do these schemes cost? I mean, how many bicycles does a city need to start something like this?
There is a large investment required up front, as you can imagine. It's not just the cost of the bicycles themselves, nor is it the maintenance of the bikes that we mentioned a moment ago. It goes much further than that. Some cities have completely changed the road system. They have, for example, built more bicycle lanes, wider bicycle lanes. They have built parking areas for bicycles called docking stations, because they could not steal parking spaces allocated to motor vehicles. In some cases, they have changed the speed limit in the city center areas, and there is a cost attached to all of these measures.
Could you give us an example?
Yes, I can. In one European city where the scheme has been seen as a great success, the total cost is in the region of 30 million euros a year.
Wow, that seems like a lot.
Well, of course, it is a lot of money, but you have to weigh up the cost of the alternatives. Trains, cars, taxis. When you look at the big picture, it's not really that expensive at all.
So how many bicycles are needed?
Sorry, yes, that question. Well, probably in the order of 6,000 for a capital city in Europe, and then you probably need about 300 docking stations for the scheme to be convenient enough for people to use. The figures will vary, of course, from city to city. The interesting thing about these schemes, however, is that a lot of the investment can be recuperated, either through taxes, which of course is usually not popular, or through more innovative ways such as advertising on the bicycles, as well as on the areas of the docking stations.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our seminar this evening, in which we're going to take a look at the history and development of the double-decker bus. We've got plenty of time for questions at the end, so I'd appreciate it if you could save any you may have until then. Let's make a start. And when did it all start for the double-decker? Well, the introduction date of the very first commercial double-decker bus seems to be open to some debate. Generally what is agreed is that the commercial buses were first introduced extensively in the 1820s, though there are apparently a few unsuccessful attempts previously. These were recorded in France as early as 1662. And as this is some time before the introduction of the combustion engine, they were of course horse-drawn, as you would expect. These early buses were called omnibuses and ran in France and England. And they did so for well over 20 years before, in 1847, Adams and Co. of Fairfield Works manufactured a vehicle with an upper deck, with built-in upper seats running the length of the bus. These were first operated by the Economic Conveyance Company of London, and to encourage people to use these new buses, the fare to sit up top was half of the cost of sitting inside. Now, you would be forgiven for thinking that this novel form of transport was hugely popular, but interestingly, that was not the case. It took another 10 years before the buses really caught on, and this was helped, in fact, by John Greenwood, who in 1852 introduced a much larger double-decker with enough space for up to 42 passengers, and it needed 3 horses to pull it along. At this point, the top deck was still accessed by a ladder. However, the potential of these buses, that the buses offered, in being able to move relatively large numbers of people around town, was enough for bus companies to invest time and money in improving them. And so we can see innovations start to appear, such as a staircase to make access to the top deck easier, forward-facing seats rather than longitudinal bench seats, which encourage more ladies actually to ride on them. And these horse-drawn buses still face problems. There was stiff competition from the less expensive trams and trains that became common in the late 1800s, and the introduction of the combustion engine really led to the end of the horse-drawn bus. In London, they ceased operating on the 4th of August 1914. In more rural areas in the UK, they continued to operate until about 1932. So the next step was the motorised double-decker. The first one was known as the NS type, and it was introduced in 1923. And it was also the first to feature a fully covered top deck. It was built by AEC, the Associated Equipment Company, and it was considered luxurious at the time, mainly due to the upholstered seats rather than the wooden benches, and the closed upper deck. These new features enabled the motorised double-decker to compete on level terms, really, with the trams. Over time, the double-decker became cheaper, and with lots of new urban development, the ability of the bus to be used on new routes without the addition of costly tram and tram tracks meant that from then on it grew in popularity very rapidly. The NS type stayed in production until it was withdrawn in 1937. The next major development was the introduction of the Route Master London bus. That was first built in 1954 and put into commercial service 2 years later. It was felt that there were several key benefits in its construction. Whereas most buses used a separate ladder chassis onto which the panels and engine were bolted, the Route Master had an alloy body shell to which separate front and rear subframes were attached each end, the front carrying the engine, steering and front suspension, the rear carrying the axle and rear wheels. It also had several other features considered advanced at the time, such as independent front suspension, power steering, automatic gearbox and power hydraulic braking. The design of the Route Master made it lighter and more efficient than its rivals. Its outstanding feature, perhaps, however, was the easy access open platform at the back, ideally suited to London's clogged streets. It allowed passengers to quickly get on or off at stops or even at traffic lights or slow speeds. This was also felt to be one of the problems with the bus, though, and we'll come to that later. Travellers also appreciated the presence of a bus conductor who was able to collect fares after the bus got moving, instead of a less efficient system on later front entry buses of having to queue at the door to pay the driver before taking a seat and the bus finally moving off. So these factors, along with, of course, its bright red colour, made it one of the iconic sights of London and gave it really worldwide fame. So, during its considerable lifespan, the Route Master underwent many improvements and design modifications. It also survived the privatisation of the London bus service and stayed in continuous service in London from 1956 until December the 8th, 2005. There were probably three factors which contributed to its demise. Firstly, as I referred to a moment ago, there was the issue of the safety of the easy access platform. There had sadly been some serious accidents, Secondly, there were reliability problems with the vehicle. It was not uncommon for it to break down or refuse to start, causing delays and sometimes chaotic scenes in London streets. But perhaps the single biggest factor was the OPO system. That stands for one person operation. Clearly there was considerable cost savings to be made by employing just one person per bus rather than two. At the beginning, the OPO service was considerably slower due to the time it took passengers to purchase their ticket from the driver. But later on, this problem was solved by insisting that travellers bought their tickets from a kiosk before getting on the bus.